Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. You have heard that 1,000 times, right? Perhaps you have uttered those words yourself while staring at a flat tire in the rain or watching your computer screen turn blue just seconds before a major deadline. But what if you were told that Captain Murphy meant the exact opposite? What hours that if his famous law was never about bad luck, but was actually about saving lives? The real story behind this cultural phenomenon is far more intense than the internet memes suggest. We are talking about rocket sleds, 46 Gs of force, and one pulse-pounding, spectacularly wrong installation job that changed engineering forever. Today you will discover why Murphy was actually an optimist, or at least a very smart realist. It is 1949. We find ourselves in the blistering heat of the California desert at Edwards Air Force Base. The Cold War is simmering, and the United States Air Force is running Project MX-981, a series of experiments asking a seemingly insane question. How many Gs of force can a human body actually survive? At the time, conventional wisdom suggested that 18 Gs was the absolute limit. Anything beyond that would supposedly turn internal organs into jelly and snap the human frame like dry kindling. To test this, researchers needed a laboratory on wheels and someone absolutely fearless to sit in the pilot seat. Enter Colonel John Paul Stapp. This man was a flight surgeon and a pioneer of aerospace medicine who believed that the human body was far more resilient than we gave it credit for. He voluntarily strapped himself to a rocket sled, essentially a steel chair bolted to a set of massive rocket engines on rails. This sled would blast him to speeds over 600 miles per hour, and then, in a fraction of a second, it would slam on the brakes. During these tests, Stapp experienced 46.2 Gs of deceleration. For context, that is like your body weight suddenly multiplying by 46. Watt-hour-style most fighter pilots black out at 9 Gs, Stapp was hitting numbers 5 times higher. To measure precisely what happens to the human body during this level of violence, Captain Edward A. Murphy Jr., a development engineer from Wright Field, was brought in. He designed 16 specialized acceleration sensors that needed to be attached to the harness holding Stapp in place. These sensors were critical because they would provide the hard data needed to prove human survivability. There was a correct way to install each sensor and a wrong way. It seemed simple enough. On the day of a major high-speed run, the sled roared down the tracks, the brakes engaged with bone-shaking force, and Stapp survived, barely. His eyes were bloodshot from burst vessels, his ribs were bruised, and he was struggling to breathe, but he had done it. The crew rushed to the data recorders, eager to see the results. What hours that they found was a disaster of a different kind. The data was nothing, zero. All 16 sensors had failed to record a single bit of information. Murphy investigated the failure immediately. It turned out that a technician in the laboratory had installed every single sensor backwards. Not some of them, not most of them, all 16. The one way they could fail was exactly how they were installed. Murphy was frustrated, but his response became engineering gold. According to the project manager, George Nichols, Murphy looked at the botched installation and said something along the lines of, "If there are 2 or more ways to do something, and one of those ways can result in a catastrophe, then someone will do it that way." Notice what he is not saying. He is not saying that the universe is out to get us. He is not suggesting that some mystical force of bad luck intervened to flip those sensors. He is stating a hard, uncomfortable truth about human nature. People make mistakes. Even under high-stakes conditions, if a system allows for an error to happen, it eventually will. Murphy's conclusion was that we need to design systems where those mistakes are physically impossible. That is not an excuse for failure. It is taking responsibility for the design. This was the true birth of what engineers now call fail-safe design or mistake-proofing. So how did this noble engineering principle become a pessimism meme? A few weeks later, there was a press conference to celebrate the success of the project. Colonel Stapp was explaining how they had managed to keep him alive through these insane tests without a single fatality. He mentioned their core safety philosophy, Murphy's Law. He explained that they assumed every possible point of failure would occur and they planned for it accordingly. The press wrote it down, But something got lost in translation. Somewhere between the high-stakes engineering of the desert and the morning newspapers, the proactive design for possible mistakes became a cynical proverb. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. It is a subtle difference in wording, but it has had a massive impact on the cultural psyche for the last 75 years. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, the law spread through engineering circles as a cautionary tale. But then 1977 happened. An author named Arthur Bloch published a book titled The Complete Murphy's Law. It was meant to be purely humorous, a collection of funny, relatable observations about the frustrations of daily life. It included things like the other checkout line always moving faster, or how your drop toast always lands butter side down. It was a massive hit, selling over 2 million copies. And here is where the problem lies. Most readers took it literally. What hours it started as engineering satire became a foundational cultural philosophy. Murphy's Law transformed from a call to build better systems into a sigh of why bother, it will fail anyway. From a safety principle to a punchline. Murphy wanted to solve problems, but pop culture turned him into a prophet of doom. In reality, Murphy was at the Air Force Base to make sure things went right. He was obsessed with reliability. He would likely be horrified to know his name is now synonymous with inevitable failure. So what is the real principle we should be looking at? In modern manufacturing, it is a Japanese concept called Poka-Yoke, which literally means mistake-proofing. It asks a different set of questions. The question is never, will people make mistakes? We already know the answer is yes. The question is, how do I build a system where mistakes cannot happen? Let us look at Murphy's Law in action today, done correctly and incorrectly. Consider the older USB plug. We all remember the original rectangle shape. It looks symmetrical to the naked eye, but it was not. You would try to plug it in, it would not fit. You would flip it over, it still would not fit. You would flip it back once more and somehow, only then would it work. That was actually a massive failure of design. It looked like it should work both ways but did not, leading to millions of broken ports and frustrated users. Then came USB Type-C. It is actually symmetrical. It is physically impossible to insert it the wrong way. That is real Murphy thinking. Do not rely on people checking the orientation of the cable. Make the orientation irrelevant to the function. We see this in the automotive industry too, specifically with fuel nozzles. In the 1980s, a significant number of people were accidentally putting gasoline into diesel engines or diesel into gasoline engines. This is a catastrophic mistake that can destroy an engine in minutes. The solution was not to put more warning stickers on the cars or to lecture drivers to be more careful. The solution was to make the nozzles different sizes. Gasoline nozzles were standardized at 21 millimeters in diameter, while diesel nozzles were made 25 millimeters. It became physically impossible to stick the larger diesel nozzle into the smaller gasoline tank opening. According to automotive engineering data from that era, misfueling incidents dropped by 87%. You simply cannot make the mistake, even if you are distracted or tired. This philosophy is perhaps most prominent in aviation. In 1935, a brand new Boeing Model 299 bomber crashed during a test flight. The investigation revealed that the pilot, who was one of the most experienced in the world, had simply forgotten to release the gust locks on the tail before takeoff. The solution was not to hire better pilots or to train them harder. Instead, it led to the creation of the first systematic aviation checklist. Engineers realized they could not trust human memory during high-stress scenarios. They had to externalize the process. The result was that pilot error rates dropped 88% over the following decades. Today, commercial aviation averages less than one fatal accident per 5 million flights. Checklists are a huge reason why. They are a physical tool designed to defeat Murphy's tendency to let things go wrong. Real Murphy thinking does not ask, "Why does this happen to me?" It asks, "How can I redesign the system to make this failure impossible for the next person?" That is the profound difference between a victim mentality and individual agency. What our sin? We view the world through the lens of bad luck. We give up our power. What our sin? We view the world through Murphy's real law. We look for solutions. So how can you use the real Murphy's Law in your daily life? You can start by applying the FutureSelf Framework. Do not think to yourself, I should remember to make backups of my work. Instead, think, my future self is going to be tired, distracted, and will definitely forget to do this, so I will automate the backup process right now. Use the 3-2-1 rule for your digital life. Keep 3 copies of your data on 2 different media types, with 1 copy stored off-site. Do not rely on your memory or your luck. Design a system where it is impossible to lose your work. Next, you can implement the Buffer Reflex. If you have an important meeting at 9 o'clock and you trust public transport to arrive exactly on time, you are inviting a Murphy nightmare. The solution is not hoping the train is on time. The solution is catching the connection 45 minutes earlier. What hourson you estimate how long a project will take. Avoid the optimistic guess. Use a realistic estimate and then add 50%. Murphy thinking means you solve the problem of being late before the problem even exists. Finally, adopt the emergency kit mindset for the small things. Instead of worrying about being locked out of your house, leave a spare key with a trusted neighbour today. Instead of worrying about your phone dying during a long commute, keep a dedicated charging cable permanently in your car. Murphy design is preventive, not reactive. It often feels boring and unnecessary in the moment until the exact second you actually need it. If this perspective on Murphy's Law was new to you, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the myths and principles we often misunderstand. We would love to hear from you in the comments below. What Auschwitz, famous law or principle, should we look into next? Is there a common saying that you suspect might have a hidden, more practical origin? Murphy's Law was never intended to be a cry of despair. It was a call to responsibility from the men and women who were pushing the boundaries of what the human body could endure. Next time something goes wrong in your life and your first thought is, of course this happens to me, stop and ask yourself, could I have designed this part of my life differently? Captain Murphy would not have just complained about the toast falling butter side down. He would have designed a plate that sat under the toaster or changed the way the butter was applied. Be like Murphy. Think ahead. Design your life for reality, not for hope. The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. We are not professional engineers, safety consultants, or financial advisors. All historical accounts are based on compiled research and available records from the era. Any implementation of safety protocols or life strategies mentioned should be done with careful consideration of your own individual circumstances and in consultation with relevant professionals. We do not guarantee specific outcomes based on the application of these concepts.